And welcome, everybody. Today is Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. Can you believe it? Where did the time go? Memorial Day seems like yesterday. Yesterday was actually July 4th. And like I said last week, we all know that once the 4th of July passes, summer flies by in an instant. So make sure you get out there and enjoy every single part of it. And we're going to talk about a few things in today's episode that'll be going on in town that you can hopefully enjoy as we move into summer. Okie dokie. So I hope you all had a wonderful 4-day weekend. I know many of you who took Monday off to make the most of it. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I know I certainly did. And before we begin, let me start off by giving you our email, which is lyndhurstcommunitynews@gmail.com. And like anything I give you, whether it's an email address or any contact information, it's always going to be in the description box below the video, so you don't have to run to get your pad and pen if I happen to say something that strikes your interest. So that's what we have. That's our email address, and make sure, send us your news. Remember, anything going on. I realize it's summer, so now things are quieting down. But as we get close to fall, things will be bouncing back, so make sure you send us your club news, your school news, church news, organization, and as well as birthdays and anniversaries of note. That's very important that we honor people who are our elders, who are making great milestones, and who've contributed greatly to our township. Okay, now that July 4th has passed, we are officially in the throes of summer, and as I've been saying, the town really does slow down, and the news pretty much disappears till the end of August. But not just yet. Remember, next week, starting on July 12th, is the township's largest annual tradition, which is the concerts Under the Stars, along with the Mount Carmel Feast. Both run at the same time in the same area, with the park and Delafield Avenue down to Court Avenue, from Wednesday until Saturday, with, of course, Saturday evening being the largest and the biggest crowds of people who come from all over, including many former Lyndhurst residents who venture back to their old stomping grounds to enjoy the concert series, the feasts, and to catch up with old friends. Now, Wednesday, the concerts begin at 7 p.m. with Jersey Sound, which is followed by The Happenings. And that begins at 7 again, as I say. Thursday, same thing. 7 o'clock is Big Hicks, followed by Thompson Square. On Friday night, we're going to start the night off with Coast to Coast. Afterward, will be followed by about 6 smaller acts who will all be doing various songs and music. And finally, Saturday's concert begins with Yacht Rock Gold. And it tops off the evening with the New York Bee Gees. And I'm a Bee Gee fan. I'm going to be there singing along in the falsetto if I can get that high, which I don't think I can. Anyway, now, even though the concert series with the feast is the largest summer event, there are other evenings in which bands, or even more movies in the park, will be shown throughout the summer. In fact, on Wednesday, July 22nd, at 6:30 in the park, there will appear a jazz band called 17 Big Band. I believe it was because there were 17 members, but apparently now they are more. And they're a community jazz band. They are made up of high school and college students who just love music and love playing it together. So that's a great evening out, a great evening of entertainment, especially if you like jazz. For those of you looking to get out and enjoy the Township Summer Series, mark your calendars for July 22nd at 6:30. The library, the Lyndhurst Library, is hosting Healthy Eating Basics, a class at the library on Thursday, July 13th. That's next week at 6:30, so you might want to hit that before you head over to the park. It's presented by dietitian Sabrina Hauser from the Lyndhurst ShopRite. Now, if you'd like to register for this event or would like more information, call 201-804-2478, extension 7, by the way. And a pasta salad demo will be included, and I believe that means you'll be served a pasta salad. That's going to be used in the demo. Don't hold me to that. That's just what it said. We'll see. And here's some good news about one of the businesses we've already highlighted in town, Vinnie's Mootz, of course, on Valley Brook Avenue, right across from the town hall. He was just voted the #1 best sandwich in northern New Jersey. It's an online poll of New Jersey sandwich joints. There were over 500 and some odd nominated. Vinnie's Mootz came in number 1 for Northern New Jersey with a total of 561 votes. And might I say, not only congratulations, Vinnie, but also he does have, is my opinion, the greatest sandwiches, as he calls them, in the whole state. And he fills them up, and you are filled when you are done. Don't forget to support all of our local businesses. And congratulations, Vinnie. Okay, now as promised, due to the lack of news, I had said that I would begin to report on various aspects of Lyndhurst history throughout the summer. And this week, thanks to Joe Cafone, author of the definitive history book on Lyndhurst called My Lyndhurst, which is available on Amazon, I'd like to read a story that Joe had sent to me regarding the history of the Marin Oval property, which is where the new middle school currently sits. So he sent me this a few weeks ago. He said, Lyndhurst has a middle school that opened in 2020. It is found on land that has an interesting history and relationship with the township. If you grew up in Lyndhurst prior to the opening of the school, there's a good chance you spent some amount of time there on Marin Oval, the site upon which the school building was constructed. What follows is some interesting historical facts about that tract of land. Now, the term oval is hardly heard anymore when referring to a sports field. That's because its use was prevalent during the first half of the 20th century and had its roots in England going back to the 1800s. The word oval referred to the general shape of the field, such as typically found in football and track venues. Information suggests that several ovals once existed in Lyndhurst. They were known as the Anchor Oval, Independent Oval, River Road Oval, Municipal Oval, Willow Oval, St. Michael's Oval, and, of course, this one, Marin Oval. Several shared the common element of being located in the Kingsland section of Lyndhurst, which was the part of town that was east of Ridge Road, which we've discussed that in the past as well. The ovals were established in an area when independent athletic clubs were prevalent in northern New Jersey. Private athletic clubs existed in Lyndhurst up through the 50s. At least some of these early private clubs fielded teams in a variety of sports such as baseball, basketball, bowling, and track. Several of the early clubs also fielded teams with players of different age levels. During the early decades of the 20th century, some of the Lyndhurst clubs did not play in leagues. Rather, games were somehow arranged with other nearby teams. One method used to solicit more competition was to use newspapers. Often contained in a story or item about a team was an open invitation to any area teams to make contact and arrange a competition as an enticement to encourage further competition. Some teams announced a willingness to enter into side bets with their prospective opponents. Some teams only wanted to hear from other teams willing to engage in such side betting. The vacant lots containing the Lyndhurst ovals were large enough to accommodate the playing of a baseball game. The fields were most austere, consisting of nothing more than dirt and or sand, often littered by small stones. The term sandlot comes to mind. There is no indication that these early ovals contained backstops, stands, or even dugouts. Open lots existed around town during the first several decades of the 20th century, and it is likely many of those served as impromptu ball fields. The ovals were usually named for their teams that played there or a nearby recognizable landmark, such as a street, and were not official township-designated places. So he goes on to say here's a little story about the Anchor Oval. He describes each of the ovals. So Anchor Oval, one of the earliest known Lyndhurst ovals, was Anchor Oval. It was identified in newspapers as being found in Kingsland, meaning east of Ridge Road. Some newspapers more specifically reported its location as Ridge Road and Main, or Marion Avenue. Evidently, the inappropriately identified street here was Marin Avenue. The oval was named for the Anchor Athletic Association, which fielded a Lyndhurst amateur baseball team that began around 1906 that eventually evolved into a semi-pro team. It was reported that as many as 1,000 patrons attended some of the games played by this team. Inferred from other period newspaper accounts, it would seem that possibly as early as 1906, Anchor Oval was first found in an area east and closer to the bottom of the Marin Avenue Hill. By 1915, the oval was moved to the upper plateau, which years later, decades later, would be called Marin Oval. The team continued to play at least up through 1922. Now, on to the St. Michael's Oval. Now, before it became the Marin Oval, the area was known as St. Michael's Oval. Some of the earliest newspapers' references to St. Michael's Oval were found in a variety of 1927 editions of the Passaic Daily News. Keeping in mind the location of the venue, its early identity is undoubtedly linked to St. Michael's Church at Ridge Road and Page Avenue. The April 11, 1933 edition of the Herald News reported that the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad granted permission to the Board of Commissioners to use St. Michael's Oval on Marin Avenue for athletic purposes. Evidently, according to the article, the commissioners had been trying to acquire use of the field for a while. Now, this is true. I could actually attest to that because I do remember being told this story. My great-grandfather was on the Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners later on, and they were eyeing that property for a future school site in the future. Took 80 years, but finally happened. So evidently, they've been trying to acquire the field for a while, and even though the township didn't own the land, Lyndhurst evidently also had a recreation commission at that time in the town's history, which was given the responsibility for designating how the field would be used. So now finally, the name Marin Oval had been used to identify the recreational venue since at least the mid to late 20s. The oval was best described as a large plateau that was situated behind housing that fronted Ridge Road between Page Avenue and Marin Avenues and extended easterly about 100 yards before descending downward toward what is now Lewandowski Street. Okay, hold on one, folks. I'm just acknowledging something on my phone. Okay. In the fall of 1933, Commissioner James Breslin wanted to establish a central playground at Marin Oval. The property was to be developed into a park that would have 2 playgrounds and an athletic field, all of which would encircle the property. The property was to be developed into a park, and the field was to contain tennis courts, a cinder track, and bleachers. Use of the field was to be made available to teams not directly connected to the high school. It was around this time when the name Marin Avenue Oval started to come into more common use. Years later, the name was truncated to Marin Oval, and old-timers will, of course, remember that. We all used to call it Marin Oval. It was around July 1936, a time during which the country was approaching the midpoint of the Great Depression, when what may be the first improvement to the site happened. The WPA, a National Works Program, instituted by the federal government, allowed for the hiring of a labor force that made upgrades at the Oval. Now, inferred from a March 12, 1947 article in the Herald News, it appears the Lyndhurst Board of Education owned the Oval property. There were discussions at that time about conveying the property to the township, which was to be developed into a war memorial recreational park, which is something I never heard, but the plans never came to fruition. In mid-April of 1947, Commissioner Clarence Sherwood declared that the construction of both a hardball and softball field had been completed by members of his Public Works Department at the Board of Education owned property. The baseball field was used by the Lyndhurst High School baseball team. That same year, Parks Commissioner James Breslin brokered a deal with the Board of Education that would open the use of the fields for recreational purposes over the summer. Fast forward to 1986, on June 19th of that year, a popular and well-respected longtime Lyndhurst youth coach and volunteer, Russ Matera, died prematurely at the age of 39. A few weeks following his death, then-Mayor Lyndhurst Mayor Jim Guida eulogized Russ's contribution to the community and promised that something would be done to memorialize his name. It was around mid-October of '86 when Marin Oval was officially named Matera Field. A memorial monument was eventually placed near a flagpole that was situated adjacent to the Page Avenue driveway, accessing the field. So there we go. And he's got more here, but I think that's a nice history about how Marin Oval got its name and its history throughout time. And again, that is the property on which our beautiful new award-winning middle school. I say award-winning. I don't know if it'll win. I think it was the design, actually. It's state-of-the-art. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you've ever sat in it, in the cafeteria, which has gorgeous skyline views of the entire Meadowlands region and, of course, the skyline of New York. Now, one thing I will say here that Joe put at the end of this word here is that a discussion about Oval would not be complete without pointing out one idiosyncrasy that many people who grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s shared. For some reason, many Lyndhurst residents of that time referred to the Oval as Marin Oval, and I remember that. Marin Oval was a very common misconception that people had about the name. The same situation applied to the adjacent street by which the Oval was identified. Why the letter O was inserted into the name, that's anyone's guess. But it was one of those unique Lyndhurst characteristics that those of us who were old enough remember well. So again, Joe Cafone, thank you so much for sending this to me. I hope you all enjoyed it. And again, please support Joe by getting his definitive history book on Lyndhurst called My Lyndhurst. It is on Amazon. It's enormous. The amount of information that's in there is just incredible. And Joe did it all on his own, tediously researching through article after article after article. And thank you again, Joe, for that. So anyway, that's it until next week. Please remember to email your news to us, especially birthdays and anniversaries of note. And also, please share this with your Facebook friends so that more people will know that we are here. And yes, we are growing steadily each week, and I'd like to thank all of you who have helped in growing the reach of this podcast. In fact, come the fall, we're going to be adding interviews. I'll be interviewing like Coach Richie Tuero and others about the upcoming football season. So we'll be adding some new features that will make Lyndhurst News even more interactive and enjoyable. So until next week, I'd like to say have a wonderful week, and I wish you all a great week. God bless you. God bless Lyndhurst, and happy summer.